As the Russian economy continues to struggle, a recent bold move by Vladimir Putin will have a rippling effect on the G7 nations, threatening to shatter their carefully imposed price cap on oil exports. Amidst plummeting current account balances, escalating economic sanctions, and a weakening ruble, Russia's oil market has taken an unexpected turn. Surging oil prices have breached the G7 $60 per barrel price cap, threatening their key sanction against Russia and causing uncertainty. As the world watches this high-stakes power play unfold, the question arises: can the G7 continue to enforce their restrictions effectively, or will Russia's maneuvering continue to challenge the status quo and reshape the dynamics of the global oil market? Hi, you've reached Finance Sense, the place where we discuss all the most recent trends in the financial markets and the economy. But before we get started, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell notification button. Now, without further ado, let's head on to the video. The Russian economy has been struggling as of late, but better days may be ahead. Vladimir Putin, the leader of the country, has taken a daring action that is sending shockwaves through the G7 and threatening their price ceiling. Experts and insiders in the business say that the G7 nations are struggling owing to the sharp increase in oil prices brought on by the Russian oil market. However, it wasn't always this way. The latest blow to Russia's deteriorating economy came in the shape of a significant decrease in their current account. Their surplus dropped to $5.4 billion in the April to June quarter, a drop of 93% year over year. This drop amplifies the negative effects of the harsh economic sanctions the West put on Russia in response to its conflict with Ukraine. Russia's energy exports are one of the worst hit industries. Furthermore, the Russian ruble has been falling and just hit its lowest point versus the strong dollar in 15 months. The national outlook appears to be rather bleak right now. To put the magnitude of the situation in perspective, the Russian Ministry of Finance revealed that tax income from oil and gas had dropped by 36% from the previous year. This drop results in a considerable revenue loss. Even worse, earnings from selling crude oil and petroleum products have dropped by 31%. Taken together, these numbers portray a bleak image of Russia's economy. Amid the economic stress, an unexpected development has taken place. Russia's crude oil prices have risen over the limit established by the Group of Seven Nations, making it more difficult for the West to implement one of its key sanctions against Russia. The G7 and EU imposed $60 per barrel ceiling was recently broken when the price of Russian Urals oil rose beyond that level for the first time in 8 months. The primary goal of the ceiling was to make it unprofitable for Western corporations to provide technical assistance, such as shipping and insurance, for Russian seaborne oil over the price specified. The benchmark price was determined based on average prices reported by buyers, sellers, and brokers who communicated with Argus Media's analysts. Despite the G7 and the EU's restrictions on imports of Moscow seaborne crude, countries like China and India have continued to purchase cheap Russian oil, circumventing the cap. Since most shipping businesses are located in Europe, the limit was created to put some financial pressure on Russia while still making its oil available to the worldwide market. Matthew Wright, senior freight analyst at Kepler, called this the first real test. Previously, the Western authorities did not need to enforce the rules as Russian crude was trading below $60 a barrel since the cap's implementation in December. It is unclear, however, whether or not Western authorities will be able to effectively enforce the restriction, especially in light of rising oil costs. The surveillance of Western corporations that provide services such as insurance to ships owned by non-G7 countries which are not subject to the limit presents a particular difficulty for enforcing the cap. The market's lack of openness makes regulation nearly impossible. In Wright's words, it's going to be very difficult to police. Meanwhile, the oil-producing countries of OPEC Plus have lowered their output considerably in an effort to increase prices, and the approach appears to have worked. As a result, the price of crude oil, sometimes known as black gold, has skyrocketed. Urals crude oil and Brent crude oil, two major participants in the international oil market, have witnessed significant price hikes of 23% and 10% respectively. Therefore, the discount on Russian oil has been decreasing as its price has been increasing relative to that of other types of oil. Before, you could get a barrel of Urals crude for $38, while a barrel of Brent crude would set you back $71. Urals crude has risen to about $64, and Brent is comfortably placed around $81, but the situation has changed rapidly. The difference in pricing has shrunk by a whopping 48% as a result. Richard Bronze, a geopolitical specialist at Energy Aspects, claims that the G7 price ceiling has been less successful in limiting Russia's oil earnings. Russian oil shipments have increased as the country has grown its shadow fleet of tankers in response to Western reluctance to impose new restrictions on oil exports. The discount on Russian oil has been decreasing in recent years, and this trend may be partly attributed to the increasing presence of non-Western marine insurance and service providers. Even when oil prices are on the rise, nations like India indicate a persistent desire for Russian oil. Russia continued to be India's primary crude oil supplier in May, providing 46% of India's total imports. This shows how skillfully Russia handles the oil market. But a U.S. Treasury spokesperson insists the price restriction is having the desired effect. Nearly half of Russia's oil income has dropped since last year, and the present situation is seen to be taking funds away from Russia's aggressive military efforts. On the other hand, the situation with the Urals-Brent spread is part of a broader market trend favoring light and sweet crude oils over medium and sour ones. The cost of medium-sour crudes, such as those produced in Russia's Urals, is growing more quickly than that of light sweet crudes, like Brent. David Fife, Argus's senior economist, says this is because there is a genuine lack of medium-sour crude oil on the market. The divergence of Russian oil exports to Asia has exacerbated this shortage, driving up prices. Additionally, disruptions in Canadian crude production and the suspension of Iraqi Kirkuk exports have further tightened the supply situation. The discount of Russian Urals relative to Brent fluctuated significantly due to the geopolitical environment, especially the crisis in Ukraine. The discount went from being nearly non-existent before the unrest in Ukraine to almost $40 per barrel. While it fell in the middle of 2022, prices rebounded in January to $40 per barrel in the wake of the European Union's embargo on Russian oil imports and the G7's price cap. The discount has been cut by nearly half since then, from $40 to $20 per barrel. The International Energy Agency said that Russia's oil exports have dropped significantly, which is concerning given the country's reliance on the commodity. In June, they plummeted by a substantial $1.5 billion, according to the IEA's most recent monthly oil report. Moscow's oil exports have decreased to an average of 7.3 million barrels per day, the lowest level since March 2021. Saudi Arabia, a major crude oil exporter, has chosen to keep its production lower by 1 million barrels per day until at least the end of August to address the situation and improve oil prices. This change may cause Saudi Arabia to lose its status as OPEC Plus's leading crude producer, allowing Russia to overtake it. Russian petroleum exports may become more reliant on the shadow fleet if oil prices continue over $60 per barrel. Even with a recent cut in Russian oil output, the effect may not be as severe as some worry it would be, since the market tends to establish equilibrium. If proper incentives are implemented, the shadow fleet might expand to process additional Russian oil. In conclusion, the Russian economy faces formidable challenges with declining oil exports, economic sanctions, and a depreciating ruble. Vladimir Putin's actions have had significant repercussions, especially concerning the G7's price ceiling. Market complexities and the presence of a shadow fleet add to the uncertainty surrounding the situation. The future of Russia's oil market remains intricately tied to geopolitical developments and global oil demand, making it a critical area to monitor in the coming months. Thank you for watching this far. Please leave a like, subscribe to help us expand our future audience, and comment down your thoughts in the comment section. This is Finance Sense, helping you keep up with all the latest trends in the financial markets and the economy. Stay safe and look out for the next video.